It was raining the first night I worked the late shift at this chicken joint on the edge of my small hometown. It was light rain at first, but then heavier. After about an hour, it was raining so hard that our customers in the dining room took their food to go so they could make sure to get home safely. There were only 2 of us left in that little fast food restaurant, Joey and me. We were both seniors in high school at the time, and were both pretty naive about how dangerous something as simple as a closing shift could be. The restaurant we worked at was lined with 2 walls that were installed with large glass windows, each window about 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Joey and I stood near these windows and looked out at the empty road while rain and thunder continued outside. "I don't think there'll be anyone else coming through tonight, man," he said to me. "Yeah, I doubt it. The storm will probably keep everyone inside." I turned and went to the office at the end of the narrow hallway, past the bathrooms and the custodial closet. By then, I had the manager's keys, and the manager trusted me to close up without her. I took a drive-thru headset with me just in case I needed to answer an order. I stayed in the office for a little while, playing a game on my phone, when the headset beeped. I groaned. Great. I picked up the headset, put it on my head, and answered, "Can I take your order?" There was no answer, but I could hear the sound of a truck engine rumbling, so I knew there was a vehicle out there in the drive-thru spot. I tried again. "Can I take your order?" A man spoke up. His voice seemed a little scratchy, like he was sick. "It's pretty rainy out here tonight, isn't it?" "Sure is," I told him with an annoyed sigh. "What can we get started for you?" He didn't answer for nearly 15 seconds. Then he finally spoke, but he didn't order. "Is it just you in there? Is it just me in here? That's a weird question." I turned to the computer on the office desk and pulled up the security footage. I could see a large black truck in the drive-thru lane before the order box, but that's all. I couldn't see the man through his dark windows, and the rain was blurring the screen a little. I tried to take his order again. "Sir, what can I get started for you?" All I heard was the sound of his truck engine rumbling and the sound of rain. Then he spoke. His voice was lower, and there was something menacing in the way he said it. "It's just you in there, isn't it? You're all alone." I stood up fast, staring at the computer screen. There was something definitely wrong with this guy. I threw my headset down. On one of the other security screens, I saw Joey gathering trash from the back near the kitchen. He held 2 bags in his hand. He was heading towards the back door to set them outside. I looked back at the screen for the drive-thru lane. The truck door was open. I didn't see the man inside the truck. He'd gotten out. I leapt out of the office and ran fast to the kitchen. "Joey, wait!" I barely stopped Joey before he opened the back door. "What, man?" Joey asked. He was confused, almost laughing at me. "What's your problem?" "There's a man outside. He's weird. I think he might try to get in here." Joey rolled his eyes. "You watch too many scary movies, man." He turned and went to grab the door handle. But that's when someone from outside grabbed the door and tried to pull it open. Joey froze. We both stood still, watching the door. The door shook again. Thank God it was locked from the outside and wouldn't open that way. Joey gulped, then he asked, "Are the dining room doors open?" My stomach dropped. The dining room doors were open, and this guy could walk right in. I turned, sprinted out of the kitchen, and leapt over the front counter. I ran to one glass door and locked the deadbolt. I turned around, ran to the other, and locked that one too. I went fast back down the hallway to the office. Joey was already in there. "Is he still there?" I asked. Joey nodded. "Yeah, he's there. But look." He pointed to the security screen. We watched as the truck pulled away. Now, neither of us are completely sure of what we saw, but we both agree on what it looked like in the bed of his truck. As the man pulled away, we saw something wrapped in a tarp in the bed of his truck, and there were what looked like feet sticking out of it. Human feet. Neither one of us unlocked any doors of the restaurant for the rest of the night. I had just started working as a gas station attendant in my hometown. The gas station was located at the edge of town, just off the highway, so we got a mix of customers, everyone from truckers passing through to the locals who would stop in. The first night I started, I was supposed to work my whole shift with my friend Eileen, when she suddenly had to leave. Eileen was running around frantically. "Mackenzie, I'm so sorry," she said to me. She grabbed her purse, she grabbed a few Gatorade bottles from the fridge, My sister is having her baby right now, and no one else in the family can take her to the hospital. I have to go." She grabbed me and told me, "You know how to run the register. Just text me at 11 tonight, and I'll tell you everything you need to close, okay?" And the next thing I knew, I was alone. It was my first night on the job, and I was completely alone. I wasn't mad at all. Eileen had to be there for her sister. I was just a little nervous. Most people never think of what it's like to be in a place like a little gas station alone at night. It's unnerving. I watched the cars go by on the highway, and there were less and less as the hours went on. By 10 o'clock, all I saw out the large windows that lined the gas station was a long stretch of empty, dark highway. It was like being on the edge of the world, or the edge of this dimension, where the unknown lay beyond. I shook my head and turned from the windows. I watched too much Twilight Zone, I told myself. I went to play games on my phone, but when I turned on the screen, I saw the battery symbol that was nearly dead. And then a second later, the screen went black and my phone died. I sighed and plugged it in. Great, I groaned. I read some of the magazines, wandered through the aisles. I even started a new pot of coffee. I went back to the glass doors at the front of the store. I looked out at the empty parking lot and the highway beyond. A chill went through me. I don't know why. I didn't see anything that was obviously dangerous. It was just this feeling sinking into me that there was something about this night. Something strange, sinister. I went all the way to the other side of the store and behind the counter. I grabbed my phone to check how much battery it had when I heard the jingle of the bells above the door. Finally, a customer. I peeked out from behind the counter and looked across the room to the doors. The little bell above was swinging, but the door was closed. I stepped out. I walked slowly toward the doors, checking in between each aisle of shelves. "Hello?" I called out. There was no one, only me. What about the bathrooms? I grabbed my keys from behind the counter. On the keychain was a little container of mace that I would use if I had to. I went past the main room and into the narrow hallway that led to the manager's office, the janitor's closet, and the bathrooms. "Is someone there?" I called out. No one answered. I pushed open the women's restroom door. The light flickered inside the single room. No one. I moved a little further down. I pushed open the men's room door. No one. Then I checked the janitor's closet. No one. The last door at the end of the hallway was to the manager's office. My heart was pounding. If someone had come inside the store, this was the only place they could be. I slowly pushed the door, and it creaked as it opened. It was halfway open. All I saw was darkness and the empty chair in front of the computer screen. And then, "Hello? Is anyone in here?" a stranger called out from the front of the store. I almost jumped out of my skin. There was a trucker near the front counter looking to pay for gas and coffee. "Sorry about that." I rushed back to the counter and rang him up. "You all right?" he asked. "Is it just you in here?" Yeah. I think so. I heard the door open earlier, but there's no one in here." Just as I said this, a gust of wind blew outside, and it was strong enough to open one of the glass doors, and it rang the little bell above. Both the truck driver and I watched this, and he turned to me. "Hate to sound cliche, but maybe it was just the wind, sweetheart." I felt so embarrassed, I almost wanted to give the guy his coffee and gas for free just so we'd leave. "Yeah, I guess so." I took his cash and gave him the change. "I'm just glad it's about closing time." "Well, be careful," he told me. "Pretty thing like you working alone in this place, there's no telling what might happen." He looked me in the eyes, and his stare lingered uncomfortably long as he walked out, the bells jingling above the doors as they closed behind him. I went back to the doors and watched him as he pumped gas. Was it him? I wondered. Was he in here somewhere, hiding? I watched him finish and watched him as he drove away. "Screw this," I said under my breath. I locked the glass doors shut. I went back to the counter and checked my phone. Because of my broken charger, it was still only at 10%. So I left it there and went back down the hallway to the bathroom. I shut and locked the door. When I was done, I went to wash my hands. And that's when I noticed something in the bathroom mirror. At the bottom of the door, where the light came in through the hallway, I saw two shadows. Shadows of feet. Someone was standing outside the door. I faced the door. I was so scared I didn't move from the sink. The water was still running. There couldn't have been anyone else in here. I made sure there was no one there, didn't I? The doorknob started to turn, but it was locked. Then it started to rattle, and the door started to shake. They were shaking the door and trying to get it open. At this point, I stopped breathing. I was still trying to convince myself this wasn't as dangerous as I thought. Maybe I didn't lock the front doors. Maybe someone still got into the store. Just another customer. But then a man's voice came from the other side of the door, and he didn't sound like a normal customer. His voice was low and sinister. "I know you're in there," he said. "Open the door, little girl. You don't want to get hurt, do you?" I cleared my throat, clinging to the sink. I spoke up. "We're closed," I told him. "Please just go away. You can't be here." He was quiet for a moment, then his fingers slipped beneath the door. They were pale and bony fingers covered in grime and dirt. His fingernails were bloodied. He started wiggling his fingers at me. "I saw you lock the doors, little girl," he said to me. "I know no one's coming in here. It's just you and me." I was starting to sweat. I looked around frantically and I saw the window above the toilet. I stepped onto the toilet seat and grabbed the window, but of course, it hadn't been opened in so long it was jammed shut. "Come on," I said under my breath as I tried to open it. His fingers slipped out from under the door and started shaking it again, trying to get in. "Go away," I screamed. "I'm calling the police. They're going to be here any second." Then it was quiet. After another moment, I saw my cell phone as he slipped the top part of it under the door. "No, you're not," he told me. Then his voice boomed. "Now let me in." He started throwing himself against the door, and it was working. The door was slowly breaking off its hinges. "No!" I used every ounce of strength I had and finally forced the window open. I crawled up and out of it frantically just as I heard the door break completely open. I felt his hand on my ankle right before I fell out of the window completely. I crashed to the ground. I must have sprained my ankle because when I got up and started running, I was limping. But I didn't even notice the pain. All I felt was the primal urge to get away, to survive. I ran as fast as I could and I made it to the highway where I flagged down the next truck that was driving by. Luckily, the man inside believed me and let me in his truck. We drove away and he called the police. They searched the gas station, but they never found anyone there. Just a few bloodstains outside the women's bathroom. In spite of all this, I continued to work at that gas station, but no one, even myself, was ever allowed to work the shift alone again. I had just started at a new web publishing company. It was my first real job out of college, and it mattered to me more than almost anything else in my life. I swear I would have fought tooth and nail to keep my job in that little cubicle, that office on the north side of the city. I just never thought what happened could have happened. It was my first day on the job, and I was determined to impress my boss. This meant that I would stay late even after everyone in the office went home. It was about 7 in the evening, and even the custodial staff was wrapping up their shift. There was one other office worker bee left with me, my new friend, Sandra. She approached my cubicle and shook her head at me. "Darren, I know you're new here, but you know you're allowed to go home, right? I'm just going to finish getting this fundraiser organized for next month. One less thing on my plate, you know?" That's when my cubicle phone rang. The number wasn't assigned to anyone in the office, so it was just an unknown number calling. I went to pick it up when Sandra stopped me. "Darren, don't." She seemed unusually nervous. I took my hand away from it. "What's wrong? Are you all right?" She bit her lip. It was obvious she was uncomfortable telling me what was really on her mind, but she spilled a little information. "We've been getting calls all day from that number. It's someone who, well, you just don't need to answer it, okay? Trust me. Plus, it's after hours. You don't need to answer any calls. You should be home, celebrating a successful first day." She patted me on the shoulder. "I heard the boss was saying great things about you, Darren. You're going to do great things here." "I hope so," I answered her. We exchanged friendly smiles, and she told me not to work too hard before she left. I remember she asked me if I was going to be okay being left in the office all by myself. She said it could get creepy at night when it was completely empty and there was no one around. I told her I was fine. I didn't get scared easily. For the next half hour, I worked alone, and the automatic motion lights slowly shut off one by one until I was left in the dark with nothing but my computer screen. Looking out over the empty cubicles, I could understand why Sarah said it was creepy here. There was an eerie quiet here, and it was just weird seeing all of these cubicles where people almost always are empty. Finally, I was wrapping things up and shutting off my computer. I stood up and out of my cubicle and waved my hand, thinking this would trigger the automatic lights. But it didn't, and I was still in the near complete darkness. It was a little unnerving, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. I shut off my computer, then I used my cell phone screen light to see my way down the aisle of cubicles toward the exit. I was about 10 feet away from the door, about to walk into the dark hallway when my cubicle phone started ringing. You ever had that feeling? That creeping feeling that something has gone wrong? That feeling that paralyzes you and makes it feel like the ground has dropped from beneath you? That's how it felt in that moment. I turned around and faced the empty darkness. I could hear Sandra in my head telling me not to answer the phone after hours, but curiosity drove me back to my cubicle where I looked at the caller ID. It was that same number, the one she warned me about. Don't do it, I told myself. Don't pick it up. But again, curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up off the cradle. I didn't say a word, just listened. I could hear someone breathing on the other end. They didn't say anything at first, and honestly, I was about to put the phone back on the cradle and write it off as some prank caller who wouldn't leave the office alone. But then he spoke. "You're the new guy, right?" he whispered. A chill went down my spine, almost paralyzing me. Who is this?" He didn't answer. He just breathed into the phone, heavy, raspy breathing. "Who is this?" I repeated. "It's best if you don't come into work tomorrow," he whispered. "You never know what could happen." I stood up straight and stared at the number on the phone cradle. "What's that supposed to mean? What are you talking about? Are you threatening me?" "Not you," he said. "Everyone else. Just don't come into work tomorrow, or you'll end up like them." I wanted to ask him more, but he hung up. I stood there, flabbergasted and staring at the phone. This couldn't be real. He had to be joking. He must have been. This was some sort of loser prank. Maybe someone was trying to scare the new guy in the office. I put the phone back on the cradle. My instincts were telling me to leave, but I picked up the phone and dialed the same number. I demanded to talk to this guy and tell him what he did wasn't funny. I was going to tell him I could call the police on him, or worse. I heard it start ringing through my phone, and then I heard a cell phone ringtone go off in the back of the office. I looked up fast. I could barely see over the cubicle. There was a faint white light in the back corner of the room. A cell phone light. It was moving fast because someone was holding it. The ringtone lasted another few seconds, and then it shut off. This guy was calling from inside the office. He was inside with me. I dropped the phone and it crashed to the desk. I couldn't run at first. I was paralyzed in that sickening shock. Then I heard whoever was in the corner as they started to move out from the cubicle. I heard their heavy footsteps as they started running towards me. I turned and ran as fast as I could, palms sweaty, heart racing. I ran into one of the cubicles. I didn't care. I kept moving. I dropped my cell phone right at the doorway. I still didn't care. I had to keep going. I spilled into the pitch black hallway. I sprinted down until I reached the glass doors at the exit of the building. I crashed through them, and suddenly I was in the parking lot. My lungs were on fire, and I ran across the parking lot all the way to my car. I jumped inside as fast as I could. Right before I sped away, I saw that man standing just beyond the glass entrance doors to the building. He was wearing all black. He had glasses on. He looked back at me with pure hatred and insanity behind his eyes. I'll never forget the way he looked at me, like he would have killed me right then and there if I hadn't gotten away. I drove for about 10 minutes, and I parked in a Walmart parking lot to call the police. I told them there was an intruder in the office, and just as I feared, when they got to the office, they didn't find anyone. The man had already snuck out. I called Sandra and told her what happened. I told her how I tried to call that same number, and the man calling from it was inside the building already. "Darren, listen to me. You're lucky you made it out of there," she said. "Who was it, Sandra? Who was the one that called?" She seemed scared even just to explain it. "His name was Jonathan Moore. He worked here before you started. He was fired last week. He threatened us before he left. He said he would make all of us pay. I told Sandra what he said to me about not showing up to work the next day. She spread the word, and they shut the office down the next day to make sure nothing bad happened. They went and tried to search Jonathan's house. He wasn't there, but they found pictures inside taped to the walls. They were pictures of all of my new co-workers, and he'd drawn what looked like bullet holes in each of their heads. I know for sure if I hadn't have been there, if I hadn't have caught this guy hiding in the back of the office, then something truly terrible would have happened the next day."